All right. Welcome back to Wrestling Retold and Relived with Richie Mars. I, of course, am your humble, gracious host, Richie Mars. It's been a big week. We took some time off, but now we are back. I want to say thank you to all of you who are listening here today. I was a part of some fantastic shows. I was a part of the No So Connection War Games Countdown with my guest here, who I'm going to get to in a little bit. We went over the 1998 War Games match, and boy, it was certainly something. And I, of course, was a part of the Ruthless Talk Roundtable this past week, going over all things Survivor Series. I'll be linking those down below, but that is then. This is now. This is Wrestling Retold and Relived with Richie Mars. You can follow us on the TikTok, the Instagram, and the Twitter at Retold Richie Mars. But the topic today is the Hulk Hogan Roman Reigns length of the championship debate. And I'm here with my collaborator, one of my very good friends, Mr. Seth Sational. Seth, how we doing?
I'm good, Richie. How you doing, bud? Good to be back.
I'm doing okay myself. Now, I sent you this picture of Hulk Hogan's number of defenses compared to Roman Reigns' number of defenses, and you're like, dude, we got to do a podcast on it. So, what motivated you to pick this as the topic for your return here?
I think you know what? It's an interesting topic. You have Hulk Hogan, the symbol, the championship reign, the symbol of the golden era of wrestling in the '80s, and now you have the age of Roman, which is taking us into this I guess you could say a golden era right now, right? Wrestling hasn't been the WWE and wrestling hasn't been hotter in a long time, so
Mm.
I think this clash of generations, this clash of reigns, no pun intended,
Haha, I
was
see what you did there.
happened. It was meant to happen.
So, let's go over Hulk Hogan's title reign first, because his title reign compared to Roman's, I almost want to say it's kind of like apples and oranges, because Hulk Hogan's long title reign, which for the number of days was 1,474 days, starting in January 1984, where he was 30 years old, and he was really the handpicked guy to usher in the WWE, then WWF, into the golden age, they say, where it was more character based. We were going to leave the old WWF behind with the Bob Backlunds and the Bruno Sammartinos. This was a new age in wrestling. Now, Seth, you were a watcher at this time.
hmm
How important was Hulk Hogan's influence in establishing wrestling as a mainstream product?
Well, I mean, I had the Hulk Hogan lunchbox, so I think that that should answer your question. Listen, Hulk Hogan represented the WWF at the time. Any, you know, you didn't have to be a wrestling fan to recognize Hulk Hogan. You saw him, you knew that he was, WWF champion.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like hey, who is this? You knew he was on the Tonight Show. He was on Letterman. Saturday Night Live. He was all over the place. Everywhere he went, he had the belt with him.
Mhm.
So it was a time where they were getting, they were building up. They were becoming a big time program, and it revolved around Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania.
Yeah,
Everybody listen, and here's the other thing too, Rich.
Mhm.
Everybody knew to, say your prayers and eat your vitamins.
Yeah, that's definitely a line that has lived on in infamy in the age of WWE. And of course, we're not promoting any of Hulk Hogan's personal life actions. This is just his
Nope.
influence on wrestling in general, and he really did bring it into that like rock and roll energy
Yeah.
energy that happened
Pop
on
culture.
TV. Yeah, he was a big pop culture icon. Still is a pop culture icon. For better or
Everybody
for
knew Hulk
worse.
Hogan.
Anytime you think of the word wrestling or WWE, you think of Hulk Hogan right away.
hmm
As much as far as impact in wrestling is concerned, he is on everybody's Mount Rushmore, whether they realize it or not.
Right.
But let's switch over to the newer generation, the Roman Empire of Roman Reigns. And as of this recording, he has held on the Universal Championship 1,172 days. Now, these two title reigns couldn't be more different in how they started. With Hogan, he defeated the Iron Sheik in Madison Square Garden, ushering that new age. With Roman, he bided his time, waited for Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt to beat the heck out of each other, and then picked his spot, signed the contract for that to make the match a triple threat match, even though it was official. It's a little bit murky right there. And then finally defeated both Strowman and Wyatt to be the Universal Champion. Now, Seth, they've done the Roman Reigns experiment before. Why did it
Mm-hmm.
catch on this time as compared to his previous title reigns?
Could it be because it was less tacky? You know, it, Roman Reigns. Listen, Roman Reigns isn't out there saying things like suffering succotash right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not doing these really cheesy. We're gonna try to force him into being a hero. Look, Roman Reigns is a badass. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Roman Reigns is a badass, dude. Look at the size of him. You know, Roman Reigns is an ass kicker. Roman Reigns, should be portrayed as that. When he first, 11 years ago, when the Shield first came out, Roman Reigns was the muscle of the group. And then when they broke the group up, and Roman Reigns went on the singles run, it almost felt like, he'd be better off as a heel.
Mm-hmm.
The fans wanted it, and after his bout with his leukemia, and he came back and had the match with Drew at WrestleMania, and then they pulled him, right around the time of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
for health reasons. When he came back, it proved the point, time away,
Yeah, different guy,
and
new
different
teeth.
guy, yeah, dude, jacked,
Yeah.
looking bigger than ever. He took the Shield gear off, and he was the badass. All he needed, he needed his wise man to bring it out of him.
We're going to get to Paul Heyman in a bit, but let's go to the presentation of Roman Reigns
Mhm.
compared to his previous big dog persona. Because, like you
Okay.
said, Shield gear had all like his old Shield attire, and it seemed like when they were trying to make Roman Reigns into the next guy, they were trying to still saddle him with what made the Shield the Shield.
Yes.
Like he would still come out from the crowd. He would have the Shield music, except in like a different tone. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of people looked right through that. Now, I think something that kind of hindered Roman a bit, at least to the smarter crowd, was that CM Punk Colt Cabana interview where he said, "You got to make Roman look real strong." Now, do you think that was probably what hit Roman Reigns' single run into a tailspin, or do you think it's a combination of just his booking, his presentation? Because he was kind of like, I feel like, this generation's Diesel as the big dog.
Okay. I mean, listen, the yard was his, right?
Mhm.
But I mean, there were parts of his presentation that just weren't clicking. Him on the microphone, for instance, you know, um, it just he didn't it didn't come off right. It
Mhm.
just there was something about it,
He even had
you know.
lenses, if I remember
Yes,
correctly, too.
I think so too.
So it
Yeah,
changes color eyes to blue, which was weird.
listen, and then there were, listen, there were times that even as the heel, I mean, as the face, he was getting booed out of the building, like after WrestleMania when he beat the Undertaker,
Yeah.
and he just remember when he stood in the ring, and they just that Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania, they just sat there and they booed him for what seemed like the whole show,
Mhm.
right?
And
Yeah.
the person that's in charge of that presentation being Vince at
Hmm.
that time, Vince McMahon. Do you think he was so like in his heels that a good guy should always have these attributes, like a Hulk Hogan? Because that's what made wrestling successful in the first
Hmm.
place. So we never really saw that Roman until he won this Universal Championship. Now, do you think it was one of those things where just the wrestling business has passed Vince by, or is it just kind of like, well, it works for some people, it's got to work for this guy?
I think we've had this conversation before. I will never, and this may get some people angry, but I will never, um, you know, I will never doubt, Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon knows what he's talking about.
Hmm.
I don't think the wrestling business has passed him by. I think he has a recipe. Whether the recipe works for everybody or not, that's a different story.
Hmm.
But I think Vince was putting that recipe on Roman. I remember, I heard in an interview somewhere, or I read an interview somewhere, where Vince at one point said about Roman that this is the guy who's going to be putting food on our table for the next 10 years.
Hmm.
And they went out of their way to make that happen. But there was something that was missing. And,
Now,
whether it was, I would say, whether it was the fans just not buying in,
mhm,
or there was just parts of the presentation that just didn't fit the individual that need to be altered a little bit.
right.
But I will never go back and say Vince McMahon. I'm not one of those people that will say Vince McMahon doesn't know what he's talking about anymore. Because,
Mhm.
dude, that's clearly not true. You don't create this global conglomerate,
Right.
and
Yeah.
sell it for billions of dollars if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. But I don't disagree with you. But when it came to
Mhm.
Roman Reigns, his presentation post Shield was,
He wanted Hulk Hogan back, is what Vince did, right?
yeah, he wanted a John Cena. He wanted a
Yes,
Hulk Hogan. And what made Hulk Hogan successful was that he was completely backed by the machine,
sure was.
and his 4-year championship run was to advertise the WWE into making it a global juggernaut. Like you had the Rock and Wrestling animated show, you had Hulk Hogan
Hmm.
and his friends, you had all these different things. You had him in, I'm not sure if this was before or after his championship reign, the No Holds Barred movie,
Hmm.
so it's
1989.
like he was in different things of pop culture. There was like the Hulk Hogan weight set I remember seeing pictures of.
I had it.
So
Yep.
everything was marketed around Hulk Hogan due to the
Hogan.
WWE juggernaut.
Don't forget the action figures.
No, I would never, the action figures.
Listen, if we were going to video this, man, I was going to have the action figures set out right behind me.
Yeah, so Hulk Hogan's run was during a time where Vince wanted a certain star, a blonde hair, blue eyed, muscle bound 24-inch python stars, as Seth is showing me his Hulk Hogan wrestling buddy right over there with the Winged Eagle Championship, I believe. A championship that Hogan wore the last day of this championship run when he lost to Andre the Giant, in fact. So that's a little bit of
Mhm.
trivia for everybody out there. But when I'm saying where Vince, uh, where creative like passed him by, it's just Vince knew how to make stars, but when it comes to the main face of the company, I think he prefers it to be one way, and that is that
Correct.
overcoming the odds juggernaut of
Baby.
a talent babyface. And when you look at Roman and you look at all the stars that came before him, like a Cena, Stone Cold, Rock, Hogan, Brett,
Hmm.
he didn't really find himself character wise until this tribal chief era. And
Correct.
now we're going to pivot towards when he is the tribal chief with Paul Heyman in tow, and later, the
Hmm.
Usos and Solo to form the bloodline. This is probably the first time WWE has surrounded itself with a heel as the main face of the company. And do you think that is the correct way to go about the business, at least nowadays? Because you have this juggernaut of a character, this final boss of a character, and now you have all these heroes trying to dethrone the mega boss.
Uh, See, why not? I mean, listen, culture's changed,
Mhm.
right? Our heroes on TV and in the movies have changed. You don't have that clean cut, all American Bob Backlund style baby face anymore
Mhm.
in society either. Um, people cheer the bad guys. They don't always cheer, just the good guys now. Um, Roman's got the look. He still has the look that he had 11 years ago. He does what Hogan did. He goes on the talk shows. He throws on the shirt and tie when he's on Good Morning America.
Hmm.
He's got the look. You know, he's just more of a heel now than he was when he was being forced down everyone's throat as a babyface.
Yeah. Now, another thing is when Roman first started the tribal chief character,
Hmm.
he was that cool heel because so many people
Yes,
wanted him to be heel so badly, and then he finally did it. Now he's getting cheered. But now we're at a point that his reign's gotten on so long that it almost went all the way around, and now people are hating him again. So I think this is all happening for a reason because the next
sure,
person to dethrone him is going to be the next major face of the company,
sure.
whoever that will be. Whether it's a Cody Rhodes, an LA Knight, a Seth Rollins, whatever you want to be. And I think it's telling that there doesn't need to be one guy that we think is going to dethrone Roman. There's multiple guys. And if you
Yeah.
go on the flip side, if we go back in our Wayback Machine, our DeLorean, gun it to 88 miles an hour, we go to the Hulk Hogan era. There wasn't really anybody you could see during that first reign that could dethrone him.
Um. Well, at individual parts there were.
Mhm. Like you
I
had
mean,
Orndorff, for instance, right?
well, even before Orndorff. So let's go back.
Mhm.
When Hogan first was the champion, his main foil was Roddy Piper.
Yes.
You know, fast forward the WrestleMania 2 run was King Kong Bundy. Bundy broke his ribs,
Hmm.
right? I mean, as a young kid, I was afraid that King Kong Bundy was going to beat Hogan at WrestleMania. He
Yeah.
overcame him. You know, lead up WrestleMania 3. Hogan against the 15-year undefeated Andre the Giant. You didn't think Hogan was going to get past him. He did. You know, then things get a little murky. Was when he did lose the title, but then he'd win it back. That then it seemed like, all right, well, you knew Hogan was gonna beat the next couple of
Yeah, yeah.
challengers and
Let's
stuff.
talk about his weird runs after this major one
Hmm.
because with Hulk Hogan, after he lost the championship the first time, his
Hmm.
longest running championship, it seemed like they were trying to choose another guy to be kind of like Hulk Hogan's successor, but then
Ooh,
they wouldn't be as popular, so then they would go back to Hogan. Look at
hmm
Macho, look at Ultimate Warrior.
Warrior. Yeah.
And you had a bunch of guys where people say now, oh, that guy should have been world champion, like a Piper, like a Perfect, like all those guys.
Hmm.
And now in present day with Roman, you have a bunch of these guys. Oh, this guy should be champion, like a Cody, like a Sammy, like a
Hmm.
Rollins, KO, etc. The difference being now is one, there's another world championship floating about, so
Yes.
it's a lot easier to attain that championship.
Correct.
So now being a world champion currently, it's still special, but it didn't hold the gravity as back then as WWE was trying to present it. Do you think now that there's another world championships, do you think the World Heavyweight Championship currently is the consolation belt?
Well, I was about to ask you, do you feel that the World Heavyweight Championship is a legit World Heavyweight Championship?
It's
And
weird, yeah.
you kind of brought that up with your question.
Yeah.
I do think I don't I don't really look at it as a world championship yet.
Mm.
To me, I mean, if you would ask me at some point to rank, the relevance of the championships, I'd put the Universal Championship number one,
Hmm.
which is interesting too because I mean that championship's only been around X number of years itself,
Hmm.
right? I mean, what was that 2014 or 15 when they created that
16.
championship?
16,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. It's interesting, that the WWE, well, and it merged with the WWE Championship with when him and Brock unified them. Um, but this, I almost want to say that Gunther's run as the Intercontinental Championship has made that title, the more relevant championship compared to the World Championship.
In terms of defenses, yes. In terms of storylines, I don't really know because it gets murky at that point. It's almost like
But is it?
well, the thing is, it's just kind of like every challenger Gunther has been different throughout all of this. It's almost
which
like,
is which what you want.
which is what you want. You want variety. The thing is, I wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily call them great storylines. Matches, absolutely out of the water. Like you had
Hmm.
Sheamus, you had the Sheamus and McIntyre, and Gunther has been a great part of SmackDown and more recently Raw of bringing those 12, 15-minute, 20-minute classics on the television show. But as a storyline in general, his storyline's always been about his reign. It hasn't been
Correct.
about the guy, at least not yet. We've had like the online discussions. I know people want Sheamus to win the championship. People want Chad Gable to win the championship. You have all these people they want to win the championship. So having a reign like Gunther's with Roman's being very similar, it might turn off a section of the audience, but at the same time, you're kind of hoping who's going to be the next one to beat them. And I think those stories running concurrently with each other might bring some fatigue within the audience. And now back to the World Heavyweight Championship, it gets confusing because when you have the WWE Championship named the Undisputed Universal WWE Championship, that means those are two world titles. So now
Correct.
the Seth one is the third one. It's the one that's out of place. So it's one of those things where Seth is doing a very admirable job. It's a very thankless position of being the first inaugural champion. However, once you develop that championship, it's not going to develop overnight. So this takes years and years in order to make this championship a staple of WWE programming. So it just depends on the stories, how the characters are reacting to it, and so on and so forth. Like Seth's doing a great job. I think Sami Zayn's arc next
Sure.
year surrounding the World Heavyweight Championship is going to be
Hmm.
very good. Uh, Everyone's talking about Gunther's possible World Heavyweight Championship reign in the future. So you're going to have a bunch of these storylines for it. But as of now, it just seems like, okay, Roman's been hogging the championship. Here you go.
But has he? But is he hogging? So here's the thing.
Mhm.
Does this go back to the whole thing we were talking about before, where people just hate on greatness? Like, is he hogging the championship, or is he just the unbeatable final boss of the video game? Nobody has been able to figure out how to beat.
Well, let's
You know,
let, let's seg-
like
let,
this,
let's
like
seg-
this,
let's segue this for a
this
second.
Roman is. Like, are we? When you say Roman's hogging the championship, are you saying Roman's being political in the back and he's basically refusing to lay down, or are we just listen? Roman's that great and no one's able to beat him.
Well, here's what I'm trying to get at right here. I have some stats right
Okay.
here. The reason why I say hogging the championship is I don't mean it behind the scenes, but the average
Okay.
days between defenses between Hogan's reign and Roman's reign.
Okay.
Average day between Hogan's title defenses, 19 days. Average days between Roman's defenses, and this is probably going to get longer because he's off the rest of the year, 37 days. And of course, in
Mm-hmm.
wrestling, we all know this unwritten rule that was for a while the 30-day defense rule if you can defend a title within 30 days. But personally, that never really bothered me because it was just kind of a like enforced rule that was loosely kind of followed. So that didn't really add
Mm-hmm.
up. But when you have over a month, and now that we've been through this last year of Roman Reigns' title reign of defenses, I believe he's had 11 this year. Four of them have been on house shows too. So it gets a little murky of is Roman the seeable champion and how long can you continue this bloodline story without your top champion?
I mean, so again, I think this goes different time,
Mhm,
right? And like you said, that yes, for years that was the unwritten rule, the 30-day title defense.
mhm,
But I mean, you look across, if look when Roman's in there, you get the big fight field. He's an attraction.
mhm.
Um, how many times a year, you know, I'll throw some other sports out there, but how many times a year do we see Tyson Fury defend his championship? Right? It's not every 30 days.
Mhm.
So who's to say that Roman has to defend his title,
Yeah, I
every month,
understand. I understand, but it's two. It
right?
is. It is two different sports, and
It is.
this goes to my next question of the amount of days held with the championship against the amount of defenses you make with that championship, which should be more important within the fans' eyes, because you could hold the championship all day long if you want, but if you're not at the show, is it really that important? But then on the flip side, the many times you defend that championship, does that make the title more prestigious than just, holding it for a long time? Because we had that Becky Lynch promo saying that she defended her championship more than Rhea did and that Roman did this year. So
Hmm.
does that give credence to her NXT championship reign, or does it uh, does it shine a light on her short run as NXT championship, or does it shine a light of these long championship reigns have a massive hole in it that the audience are now beginning to see?
I mean, I think it does. It shines a light on the fact that champions do not need to defend their championship as often, and part of it could be because they have so many championships. If you have less championships, you'd have to defend the championships more.
Hmm.
I mean, it are they trying? That is the title picture diluted if you have the championships being defended all the time. You know, I mean,
I mean,
there are some. There are some,
well, I wasn't going to bring up AEW, but
yeah,
like,
we were
but
just
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about it
yeah,
though.
like when you have a championship match every week, does it harm the title, or does it mean less? Because it, it's different for every championship. Like we've talked about the
Correct.
Intercontinental Championship and Orange Cassidy's
Hmm.
international championship runs. Great title reigns, both of them, in very different ways, and it added prestige to championships that didn't necessarily have that prestige beforehand. And now you have
Correct.
also have these matches, at least with Gunther's case, where people are fighting for a shot at this championship. And I think
Hmm.
that's what, at least now, the WWE Championship is actually lacking. Because when Roman first unified these championships, and I've been saying championships so many times, so I'm getting exhausted. But when he first unified them, it seemed like stack them up, knock them back down. It seemed like these challengers only challenged him once, and then there was no follow up. Drew challenged him once, no follow up. KO challenged him once, no follow up in
No,
that regard. Sami Zayn challenged him once, no follow up. Cody challenged him once, no follow up.
I think KO actually even referred to this the other day. I think he did have 3 championship matches with him.
That was in the beginning.
Um,
I'm talking about just
yeah.
more recently.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's had 3 championship matches with him over the 3-year run.
Yeah, he has a last
But
man
he's
standing
he's
match, a TLC
he's
match, a cage
yeah,
match.
yeah, he's the only one though. But
Yeah.
he's the only one. And I hear what you're saying.
Mhm.
Listen, Roman.
Mhm.
Some people could even say is responsible for a lot of the AEW roster because he knocks these guys out, and they go running to another promotion. You know,
If you think about it, his run,
little giggle.
he beat Strowman and Bray for the
Yeah,
championship. Both of them were released, and then they were brought back
yeah.
during that same run.
Think about
So
that. Yeah.
that's a crazy amount of passage of time.
Yeah. I mean, think of the amount of people,
Mhm.
that have held other championships in
Mhm.
that amount of time.
And then
Roman
another one of
Roman is the
Roman
final boss.
and another one
You
of
know,
the Roman stories that wasn't followed up on, that DQ lost to Seth Rollins at the Rumble. And I think that's what gets people upset with Roman's championship run is just the lack of follow up and the myriad of interference that you get per match.
he's a heel.
Not saying he doesn't need to have like he's a heel. He's allowed to have interference in his matches. That's the
Right.
point of being a heel.
Listen,
But
Ric Flair is the greatest of all time, and
yeah,
he had the Horsemen interfering
yeah.
for him.
The problem is when it's the paint by numbers, same exact formula. That's when I start having a
Wrestling.
little bit of a problem with it, because
That's wrestling.
it is wrestling, but wrestling should be
No,
able to be a little bit more creative. Because look at this match with LA Knight, for instance. Put LA did he bury LA Knight? No, of course not. LA Knight is as
no.
hot as he's been, even though that promo on SmackDown was a little bit brutal. But everyone's allowed to have a bad promo every now and then.
not everyone's going to win the championship match and the championship in their first match.
No, I know.
Stone Cold did it.
No, yeah,
Bret Hart did it.
that's my point when people are saying, "Oh, well,
Yeah,
LA needs to win." I'm like, "No, he doesn't because look at all these guys with their first championship run. They were either at their peak or close to their peak. They didn't win it. Same thing with LA Knight. The problem is
yeah,
the whole setting of the matches. You could copy and paste that LA Knight match to almost any other match that Roman had with bloodline interference. It's the same match. And that's my issue like that. Imagine going to the movie theater and you're watching
mhm,
an Avengers movie and they're like
okay.
they tease the sequel. It's like, "Oh, I can't wait for the next Avengers movie." But then it's the same plot except the villain's slightly different, and then it's the
But,
same cookie cutter formula. That's what I have a problem with
but,
some Roman
but
matches.
Rich, Hulk Hogan's run was the same thing. His matches were all the same, where Hogan would get beat up, he would Hulk up, he would hit the leg, the boot to the face and the leg drop and end the match.
I'm not
It
saying I'm
was,
not saying that's good either.
but I'm saying
It's a
it's a
different
thing.
time.
That's welcome to WWE, welcome to professional wrestling. That's what they do, and that's what they do, Rich. They have a formula that works and they stick with it and they write it out as long as they can.
Yeah, I agree. They really drag out a lot of things as long as they can. We've seen a lot of gimmicks overstay their welcome. Remember, this is random, but remember those Fashion Files segments that never ended? On-
There was nothing wrong with the Fashion
I'm not
Files.
saying it was wrong. They just dragged it out for months.
And if Dirty Dango, if you're listening, you and Tyler Breeze can call up at any point and join our podcast.
Please do. But again, just because a formula works doesn't mean you do it all the time. You know what I mean? It's just like they
Well,
can
we're telling
afford to do it now because they've been as hot as they've ever been. So
they're selling out arenas.
there's
Why
no
would they?
there's no contingency plan. There's no need for a backup because it's like Roman's on the pay per
Yeah,
view. There you go. I'm just saying from a creative standpoint, I would like to see finishes a little bit different because look at like some Attitude Era finishes. You'll never get one that's the same. You know what I mean? Everything is going to be a little bit different. You look at Triple H's match with The Rock against Triple H's match against Mick Foley, and even the different matches they've had ended differently. So it's just like these championship matches. I would like
or
there to
when
be
Bret
some
Hart
distinguished.
took on Diesel, and Diesel used Vishon's leg as a weapon.
Uh, let's see. Oh
That
yeah,
one of the inner half
he
ones.
he took on Michaels, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I think no.
It
I
was
think
it
I
was
think
Michaels. It was Beware of Dog, right?
oh,
No, wait,
it
not
was it
Beware of
was
Dog. It was Better Friends. Good
yes.
friends, better enemies. Yeah,
That was Michaels. That wasn't Bret Hart.
it was Michaels. Yeah, because
It was
Michaels
oh,
wrote in his book that they pitched him, and he's like, "I'm not touching that. You're doing it."
yeah.
But
Like
we're
they're
gonna
using a
say.
guy. They're using a prosthetic leg as a weapon. I mean,
But
you wanted something different, Rich. You got it.
yeah, so it's like there was at least like some difference to it. Even like I'll excuse like again the Drew one, like because Solo made his debut, but then you had Solo do the same, arguably the same thing to Cody that year's
Mhm.
WrestleMania. Still phenomenal match, but
Well, dude,
but because that match was so phenomenal, people forget about the Drew McIntyre match, especially now
it
because like it cooled Drew off immensely because there was no follow up, and that's the thing with not only Roman but Hulk Hogan. And this is what I want to ask you: has any opponent been devalued for facing these guys? And I'm going to say
it's
personally, no.
no.
But there are people that say that Sammy's not as hot as he once was. KO is not as hot as he once was. Cody's stagnant. And then you go to the Hulk Hogan era. Then you have Mr. Perfect, Roddy Piper, and then they turned babyface, and they weren't as successful as babyfaces as heels. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where the follow up is just as important, if not more so, than the championship match itself. Because if you don't have anything to follow up with, then that's when people are going to get cooled off.
Correct. Listen, in any combat competition, there's going to be someone who wins. There's going to be a loser. Someone's going to. The important thing is that someone goes over and someone gets over.
Mhm.
And I don't believe, like, just look at the most recent, match with LA Knight. Yeah, LA Knight didn't win, but I wouldn't say he was buried. To me, LA Knight's a bigger star because he was in that match
Mhm.
with Roman. LA Knight's a bigger star because he showed that, hey, listen, I came this close to beating Roman,
Mhm.
and I didn't beat him because of interference from you,
Mhm.
Jimmy Uso.
Yeah.
You know, um, and it like I said, so he didn't win, he didn't go over, but he got over.
Yeah, and you
You
could say
know,
that with Sami Zayn's association with Roman. You could say that
it's not like
with
I was gonna
a
say
lot of people. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's not like L.A. Knight lost to a one-legged opponent,
Mhm.
on crutches.
Yeah.
He got beat by Roman Reigns, and it took Roman Reigns and a healthy bloodline to beat him.
And I want to ask you this because Hulk Hogan was such an integral part of his era, and Roman has been an integral part of this
Mhm.
era. You take both of their storylines out. We're gonna like grab our action figures of Hulk Hogan,
Right.
Roman Reigns, and we're gonna take them out of of the toy chest. We're putting them back in, and now you just have all the other wrestlers involved.
Mhm.
Does WWE stack up the same way? Since you have Roman who makes sporadic appearances on television. How is the television product without their head of the table, so to speak? Same with Hulk Hogan when he wasn't on the show.
So, and we were talking about this a little bit before, but so TV wrestling was a lot different in the 80s when
Hmm.
Hulk Hogan was the champion.
Yeah, break it down for us.
Back then, back then they would do the TV tapings, for a month at a time. You didn't have the live wrestling that we have now. And now we have live wrestling Monday night, with Raw. You have Tuesday night with NXT. You have Friday night with SmackDown, and that's just WWE. Plus the once a month pay-per-views, or sorry, premium live
Yeah,
events.
get it right.
You didn't have that. You didn't have that back then. Back then, they would do a month's worth of tapings. You had wrestling superstars. You had wrestling challenge. All right, as the two main shows, and it was basically the wrestler versus enhancement talent.
Hmm.
Um, you didn't have the main event matches in every segment like you have now. You had a guy, the local unknown versus the superstar. The match usually lasted all of 3 minutes. You know, the wrestler would hit his spots, his main moves. He would hit his finisher. And he would you know he would go on his merry way. They'd go to commercial, or they would go to the Piper's Pit, or the Body Shop, or the Snake Pit, whatever the talk show was, or they'd go to Mean Gene doing an interview up top, or you know what I'm saying,
Hmm.
or they'd go to Control Room where they would tell you about the pay per view coming up, and they so that's how it was back then. And Hulk Hogan was never on. Hulk Hogan never wrestled on those shows.
Was he in
We saw
any
Hulk.
segments when
Yes,
he didn't
you'd see him
wrestle?
on. You'd see him on an interview segment. You'd see him on the talk shows, or they'd be interviewed with Mean Gene. But he wasn't wrestling enhancement talent. The only time, sometimes you'd see him on. They'd have a tag team match on.
Hmm.
Go back to 1980s. And it was where it'd be an important spot. Like go back to 1986 with wrestling superstars Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy versus Hulk Hogan and Paul Orndorff.
Hmm.
You know, you had the major turn of Paul Orndorff in that match. You know, um, and then they had their big pay-per-view matches and the house show matches, but you didn't see the two of them fight each other on TV except for the Saturday Night Main Event match,
Hmm.
the cage match.
Yeah. So
Um,
Hulk Hogan, even though he wasn't
you had
wrestling, he was a part of television in some way, shape, or
yeah,
form, right?
you had to buy a ticket, at a live event to see Hulk Hogan.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But
you weren't getting him on free TV.
yeah, but was he still on like he was still like on an interview set? He was doing like a promo. He
Yeah,
was doing like something. Like I remember they had
or they had
like
something pre-taped.
didn't
Yes.
they have like a wrestling like sit down like talk show set too at that time?
Yeah, they would. You mean like
Yeah.
for a show? I mean, they had
Yeah.
Tuesday Night Titans
Yeah,
back in the
yes, yes,
day.
yes.
And before Monday Night Raw, they had a couple different incarnations of primetime wrestling.
Hmm.
On Mondays, you had,
Hmm.
you know, the original, incarnation of primetime wrestling, which is basically just a summary show of different matches from house shows. You had the live audience version of primetime wrestling with Vince McMahon in
Hmm.
his workout gear with Bobby Heenan, where they'd have guests come in to interact with the studio crowd, and they would show some matches. And then you had the panel version, the last incarnation of Prime Time, where it was like Vince and Bobby Heenan and Roddy Piper and Rick Rude, and they had panel discussions, and then they would show matches, all from house shows. So, and then you also had Sunday mornings, you had All American Wrestling too. Let's not forget about that. But you know what I'm saying?
So
Things were different back then.
yeah,
Now
so
people, I feel like people expect that they have to have the champion on, all the time, and when they do, they have to have these mega matches.
like
Um,
here, like I don't think Roman Reigns should wrestle every single week. That's not how I want
no,
Roman Reigns to go, like career to go down. But he should still have a presence on the show. It's okay every
he
once in
does.
a while for Paul Heyman to say, call Roman Reigns to the phone. But
Mhm.
here's the thing, you can't do that for weeks on end and expect me to get excited about it.
No, then he comes on every couple of weeks. Roman's
It's
going to
now
be there tomorrow.
this year it's been a couple months. If we're
Listen,
being completely
I
honest.
hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
Richie. I hear what you're saying, and
So I'm just
I
saying,
will
like,
agree.
if there's
I
like a
will agree.
backstage segment where it's like, again, there's some SmackDowns where Roman's
Pre-tape
just
it.
in his locker room, you could just
Yeah,
tape stuff
pre-tape it.
there. Yeah, you
Yeah,
could just
pre-tape
pre-tape
it.
it, it's just like it's not
I
that
agree.
hard. Yeah.
That, and I think for the most part, they do mention Roman's name every week. He is. It's not like he's gone and forgotten about. Um,
No, absolutely not,
and,
because everyone's reminding
and
me he's not there.
you gotta listen. Does Roman Reigns? And here's the thing. And does Roman Reigns have to wrestle at every monthly premium live event? No, because look, there's a premium live event every month. And go back to Hogan's days, there were 4 pay-per-views a year.
Hmm.
You had Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. That was it.
Speaking of Survivor Series and Roman
Mhm.
Reigns not being on Survivor Series,
Does he have to be there?
I mean, it's a big four pay-per-view. If you want a big four pay-per-view, shouldn't the champion
All
be
right,
on there?
somewhere. Maybe he should have been there and not, in Saudi Arabia then, or my point is, I mean, listen, does he have to, if there's you got to pick and choose your spots. There's enough. You got Seth Rollins with a world championship. How many world champions do you need on each event?
He's not even defending the championship at this event.
This is true.
Yeah,
And at one
so
point, I thought,
so
have you
so
listen? At one point, I was thinking, I'm like, are we gonna get Roman versus Seth again? Champion versus champion. I mean, I was trying to figure out where they were gonna go with
I
this.
can't go back to brand warfare, Seth. It was cute when they did it in
No,
2005. It was fine when
yeah,
they did it in 2016, 2017, but then it got old really
yeah.
fast.
Maybe that's if you remember too. Remember a couple of years ago we were talking about this, and we're trying to figure out ways they could fix it. I still say if they were going to do the 5-on-5 Survivor Series matches, the winning team should be able to select someone from the losing team and bring them to their brand.
Yeah, and my suggestion, I believe, is the winning team secures the number 30 spot for each of their brand for the Rumble.
Yes,
Or something that actually makes brand warfare
yes,
mean something. Because guess what?
need something.
We had a brand warfare pay-per-view. It was called Bragging Rights, and it
It didn't work.
sucked.
I forgot about it.
Yeah, it's like they basically merged Bragging Rights and Survivor Series into one because they were going to cancel Survivor Series at
I
one
do remember
point
that.
because the
Mhm.
pay-per-view buy rate was so bad, but then they were like, "Oh, it's okay because Survivor Series was only for to counteract Starrcade from WCW, and after WCW was gone, it's like, well, why do we still have Survivor Series? It's just like one of those
That's
things.
Thanksgiving Eve tradition.
Yeah, tradition. But anyway, we are still on the Roman and Hulk Hogan topic,
We're
and
going off on a tangent.
now now during their reigns there are two very different portrayals. With Hulk Hogan, maybe he'll have a friend, and then that friend will turn on him. But usually, Hogan promoting something is usually by himself or Mean Gene. Now with Roman, he has a bunch of people to work off of. Now I will ask you the question about Roman specifically. If
Hmm.
Roman didn't have his bloodline or his wise man or Sami Zayn to work off of over the past couple of years, does this championship reign look how it looks currently?
They all go together. And did Roman play off them or did they play off Roman? I mean, is Jim or is Jay Uso main event Jay Uso? without Roman Reigns.
He is not, no.
No. Is Sami Zayn in the spot he's in right now if it wasn't for his feud with the Bloodline?
He is not.
No. Roman Reigns is making the people he's in the story with, he's making them bigger stars.
Correct, yes.
Um, and for that, I mean, how do you fault it?
Mm-hmm.
He's look at all these stars he's creating. I mean, I'm waiting to see, does he, is the next chapter, is he going to bring in some more Bloodline members? Like, what are they going to do? How is this going to play out? I'm still just as captivated in this Bloodline story now as I was when it started.
Now, you were at SummerSlam, right, Seth?
Correct.
And that was at a point where people say the Bloodline storyline jumped the shark when Jimmy turned on Jay. Even though I went on this program saying that was going to happen, a lot of people didn't believe me. A lot of people said mean comments to me, but I was right in the end. But it's okay. I'm not holding a grudge. Now, do you feel like the Bloodline story has jumped the shark, or do you think it's wrestling?
It's in the third inning.
We're not in the third inning,
third
so
inning.
stop saying that.
Paul Heyman said it's in the third inning.
Paul Heyman's a notorious liar.
Paul says the third inning. Maybe it's in the fourth now. There's still a lot of story to be told. The Bloodline story will end when the people involved are ready for it to end.
Does the Bloodline story need the championship? Can it survive without the championship?
Did the Four Horsemen need the World Championship?
No.
With Ric Flair?
No.
Were they as important with that when Ric Flair, or if Ric Flair doesn't have that World Championship?
Are they as important?
Does Hulk Hogan and the NWO, do they need that World Championship?
I mean, you could argue it either way.
You could. I mean, that's a great argument, right? I mean, right now, who's running Monday Night Raw? It's a Judgment Day. They have all the gold.
Not the world title.
Not yet.
We'll see.
Drew's a member now.
I think he's more of an associate than a member.
Is he an official member? Yeah, he still has to get his T-shirt.
Yeah, that's what it is nowadays. You need the T-shirt in order to be official. We saw it with Sammy with that segment.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Great segment.
That's right.
Again, it's like all these little segments with the Bloodline are gold. The problem is, as much as the stars that they're creating with Roman, has Roman created more stars and then hindered others? Same thing with Hogan hindered during his championship run?
I think...
Or is it one of those... Or is it one of those like hindsight 2020 things?
I mean, to me, anytime you're in the ring with the world champion, I mean, that's gotta mean something, right?
I will say in February, this wasn't the first time Sami Zayn faced Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. The first time was when Brock killed him. Yes. Then Sami lost in about 16 seconds.
Correct.
So I don't think that did anything. And that year's WrestleMania, that's when he was in that match with the Jackass guy. Who was it?
The guy, the guy from Jackass. Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Why can't we remember his name right now?
I don't know why.
What's the matter with us? Yeah. But going back though, now here's another match. That none of us were looking for. I know me. I was looking for. To me, I was at that WrestleMania, and here I am thinking that was going to be my bathroom break. I thought it was a great match.
Yeah.
It was a phenomenal match. People were talking about it. People were talking about it. Even the build for that match. Where the Jackass guy put Sami Zayn's phone number, on the airplane and flew it around L.A. and Sami Zayn was getting all those calls and text messages.
I mean, that's more indicative of the talent of Sami Zayn than anything else.
You know what I mean, sure is. And that's what that could be the scene as the spot where like, what, this guy needs a bigger stage, and maybe that's what got him into the program with the tribal chief.
Well, he even said that the original like Honorary Uce storyline didn't really have a end point at the beginning, and once Vince stepped down from creative, that's when Sami started getting time with Roman Reigns in segments. So it's one of those things where the Roman interactions, like I think Roman's wonderful on the microphone, and if you're seeing in different segments of his matches, you could see him slowly kind of losing it a little bit. Like we saw the Bloodline Civil War where Roman was
Hmm.
freaking out that he didn't pin the Usos and Solo was kind of snapping him
Yes.
out of it. And that's where I think this bloodline story is going, with Solo eventually being the new tribal chief, and then Roman's going to be like yesterday's news once he loses that championship, you know?
I do think that listen, right now, and go back to the original question: does the Bloodline need the World Championship? The World Championship that's the whole head of the table thing. Roman's the champion. Roman has to be the champion because Roman's putting food on our table,
Hmm.
right? Roman Roman is bringing the food. He's paying the bills for the whole Samoan dynasty, for the whole Anawahi family.
God forbid he loses the championship and then he has to show up to work again.
You know, how's if Roman loses that championship, I mean, think of all those hungry mouths in that family. They're not going to be able
We
to eat.
might see him 2 weeks in a row.
Dude, poor Rikishi's going to be starving.
Ugh. And raise one for Rikishi. He deserved a lot better. He
I
deserved
mean,
more
dude,
than doing it for The Rock.
say what you want, but Rikishi's got 3 kids right now that are all making a mark in the business. So,
Yeah, one defeated
you
Cena.
know,
And going back to Hulk Hogan, how he lost the championship, which was
oof,
the
which
screw
one?
job of the
Andre?
original screw with Andre. Yes, when Hulk Hogan clearly had his shoulder up, and there was
Mhm.
an evil twin referee who got plastic surgery due to Ted DiBiase, and it was an evil plan to get DiBiase the WWE Championship. Now,
Could
should
have
that
nothing to do with the could have nothing to do with the fact that Dave and Earl were legit twins.
Yeah, it had to be an evil twin with plastic surgery.
Yes.
Now, is that the way he wanted the Hulk Hogan reign to end?
No. But
What would you think
again,
but better question, what would you think would be a better end for the Hulk Hogan championship run?
to me, and this goes back to what you talked about before, the person who beats the champion is going to have to beat him cleanly. That person is made into a bigger star. You know, Andre the Giant had been undefeated for 15 years. He lost at WrestleMania. That was his only loss. You know,
Allegedly.
Right, allegedly. Let's not forget about him and Hogan having their match at Chase Stadium, years earlier.
Hmm.
When I think Hogan even body slammed him before as well.
Yeah.
But let's you know, but Hogan did not beat Andre at WrestleMania 4. They went to a double disqualification or a double count out.
Hmm.
And then came the main event on primetime TV on Channel 4, on a February Friday night. And Andre didn't lose this time. At the same time, yeah, you had the Cracker Jack scenario with the referees. So does that make Andre less of a world champion? Well, we never really knew because Andre then surrendered the title to Ted DiBiase.
What he said,
You
the
know,
WWF tag title to
yes,
DiBiase.
yes, he did. I give you the tag team title. I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
But again, he's not wrong. DiBiase didn't win it. But President
who
Jack
would have been
Tunney,
your pick to take that title off of Hogan?
my favorite of all time, Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff.
Really?
Yes.
Would he have taken it off him during that feud he had with Hogan, or would you have waited till after?
Well, first of all, I don't understand why they didn't get a WrestleMania match, but that's neither here nor there.
Hmm.
The biggest feud of the year was that feud. I mean, we've talked about the Jericho and Kevin Owens match, not getting proper footing at WrestleMania.
Hmm.
Well, Hogan and Paul Orndorff, they were the biggest story of that year, and they didn't even get a WrestleMania match. Orndorff wasn't even on the card. I mean, there's a lot. It's crazy. I still say Orndorff's feet hit the floor first in that cage match too.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I would have Mr. Wonderful beat him. Um, Macho Man, Macho Man. Listen, Macho Man then went on to be a champion. But Macho Man didn't even get a clean victory over Hogan. Hogan beat him at WrestleMania 5.
A little bit of a fun fact on who was supposed
Mhm.
to win that tournament. Originally, it was supposed to be the $1 Million Man to win that tournament.
Yeah, but
However, when Honky Tonk Man refused to drop the IC title to Macho Man, Vince was like, "Oh well, we'll just make Macho Man the WWE Championship," which is a pretty good consolation prize if all things
Yes,
considered.
sure is.
So
I mean,
I don't think DiBiase ever really fully forgave Honky Tonk Man for that. But then
you should
they
really ask him.
and then he created the $1 million championship, and the rest they say is history.
History.
But
Sure.
we're going to transition to the Roman run. Since we're still in Roman's run,
Yes.
we can't critique how he lost the championship. But I'm going to give you the pencil, Seth. I'm going to have
Okay.
you create the ending of Roman Reigns' championship ending.
Well, I think they're clearly building a few different directions, right? I mean, they're clearly building Cody as the next face of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Cody's all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Literally.
they've already had they've already had Jay right. They've already had Jey Uso get a pinfall on Roman in a tag match.
Mm-hmm. First in
You
3 years.
that's right. LA Knight is the flavor of the fandom right now. Everyone loves LA Knight.
Not after that promo. Now he's
Um,
a terrible wrestler now.
right. Yes. There's still plenty. Listen, there's still other guys like KO, and who knows what's going to happen when AJ comes back.
Mm-hmm.
They're building a lot of challengers. I think it's safe to say that the people are, everyone's behind Cody as being the man to eventually do it and finish his story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that has to be this year. I've gone on record as said I would let this play out. I don't think you need to end Roman's reign this year. I don't even think you need to have the two of them have a match this year. I think you could play this out. I mean, with the sporadic appearances we get from Roman anyway, you could play this out for till WrestleMania 41, wherever that is. I mean, that's got to be it's gonna be another major arena anyway.
I do want to ask you this last year of the Roman Reigns championship run. Like I mentioned
Mhm.
before, he's only had 11 defenses, four of
Okay.
those being house shows. But I want to specifically rewind to the night after WrestleMania with the Cody
And
and
you
Brock,
complained about Brock.
the Cody and
you, used
Brock
to,
thing.
you used to complain about Brock when he was a part timer.
Yeah, well, yeah, it wasn't great either. But with Cody and the Brock thing,
hmm
and we never got a legitimate answer as to why Brock attacked Cody, and then Roman went on to face the tag team champions, and then his
hmm
own family, even though he's champion. You know what I
Right.
mean? Wouldn't it made more sense, like, if they were going in that direction for Cody to win the championship then, because Brock had a stipulation that he couldn't challenge Roman for the championship, and if Cody was the
hmm
champion, then Brock could challenge, and then Roman and Solo could do their own thing with the tag team division.
How long do they want to play this out? I mean, listen, there's no rule that says Roman has to lose the championship for a while. They
No,
seem,
no, I'm not.
they seem
I'm
rich.
just saying.
They keep pointing out all these title reigns that he's surpassing. They listen. They've been mentioning Hulk Hogan's name a lot. Are they planning to have Roman pass Hogan? Because
I
if that's the case,
I
he's going
understand.
another year.
And they're conveniently leaving out Bob Backlund, which I don't know why. But
Good
again,
point.
the question is, wouldn't it made more sense for Roman to drop the championship then? Because then everything else sort of makes sense in comparison.
Well, yeah, yes and no. All right.
Mhm.
Remember, the money. First of all, the money's in the chase, right? People want to see everyone chase Roman. People want to see Cody, for instance, chase Roman. You know, but what happens when someone finally does beat Roman? Then what is you know
Then then then
is
then
is there going to be a
if
follow-up?
Cody won at 39, then Brock
Yeah.
would have then you would have gotten the Brock storyline.
Okay.
That's what would have happened.
And then what?
And
But then
then
what?
and then Cody
What
gets
would you
the
have?
challenge. You had Drew,
And then
yeah,
what?
you had Drew, you had a rematch with Seth, you had
But
Sammy, you had Kevin.
then you basically have Cody in the spot that Seth's in right now as champion. You know,
You wouldn't think that
I
they
mean,
would have
think about it.
you don't think they would have presented Cody higher than Seth. Cody's already been presented higher
Well,
than Seth currently.
I'm just saying what I'm just saying. in that Seth is a babyface champion,
Mhm.
you know, on Monday Night Raw. Now, obviously, Cody could have been on SmackDown. He could have been drafted to SmackDown, or Seth could have been drafted to SmackDown,
Mhm.
because they wanted to have a title on each show,
Mhm.
or they could have had AJ Styles win that championship,
Mhm.
in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
All I'm saying is, though, you basically have, you basically going to have, a feud with the Judgment Day.
Mhm.
You would have had a couple of matches with Finn, with Damian Priest threatening to cash in. I mean, but is that as big as is that as big right now for Cody as it is for Cody to be chasing the end of his story?
Well, you would also had, the Roman rematch. You would have a bunch of other
Right,
matches with Cody. So the stories would have been a bit different than the ones with Seth Rollins, hypothetically. But I do understand what you're
right,
saying, where it's just like if you need that rogues gallery of villains to build up
right,
that with Cody, then that's pretty much what you have to do for Cody's championship after the fact. Once he wins that story, that new book opens, and then you have to do the Cody Rhodes story of him being the champion that everyone's trying to chase, which
right.
you have to try to make as more if not more so enticing as the current story that he's on. And
Correct.
it seems like even though he lost at WrestleMania, his popularity only has increased over time, So it's one of those things where it's like, again, you could have had it both
Well,
ways,
and
So
then the other thing, and this is what I was about to say, and you kind of just alluded to it with Cody being as popular as ever right now.
mhm,
You know, one of the you're going to eventually, there's going to be, if Cody wins it
mhm.
and becomes the unbeatable champion, will there end up being greatness hate on him?
I'm sure there would be, It's just like
You
it's
know,
just
and
natural at that point.
do they want that right now? I mean, listen, to me, I think when if I had to pick someone right now, if you said, you know, gun to your head, who you picking is the person to beat Roman, I'll tell you, I think it's gonna be Cody.
Yeah, I'm the
I,
same.
I don't know when.
Though
I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced it's gonna happen at WrestleMania this year.
I will tell you this: both Cody and Roman have been super protected. They're the only ones who've been super
Yes.
protected this year, and the fact that both of them have only been pinned once,
Mm-hmm.
and Cody lost by pass out and not tap out with Brock. So Cody's only lost twice cleanly.
Correct.
And he was, and when he's in a tag match and somebody loses, it's usually the other guy who's taken the fall. So there's a bunch of there's a lot of hype in this match, and again, even the stare off. The problem is with postponing the Cody and Roman match for another year is
Mm-hmm.
what else do they have to do, and how are they going to keep this interesting
Yes,
for another year? And a lot of
I,
people
I
don't
agree.
have that confidence in WWE
Well,
creative,
it's,
and it's
and
just
I don't.
and it's one of those things where you need to, like, you look at their track record, you can kind of see where it's going. Then you look at, like, when
Mhm.
it's really good, but then it's like you'll get some other things that are kind of questionable. So, but this is the first time we're seeing an Endeavor Triple H
I
creative. So we
I
have to
agree.
see where I hate the saying, it's like, oh, we have to see how it goes. We have to wait and see,
Mhm.
but it's like we saw Triple H kind of with like handcuffs on last year, and now we're
Mhm.
going to see how his vision is for creative. So
I
again, it's
I
one of
look.
those things where it's like I think Triple H will come through in the end because Triple H really likes these long heel
Mhm.
championship runs, as we've seen in NXT and currently.
He
So
and Triple H himself was a heel champion,
yeah, so again, it's one of those
and
things
he's his
where
idol was Ric Flair.
yeah, and which makes me almost kind of nervous because it's like if you've seen like his babyface story arcs were great. Look at Sammy and Gargano. Look how their
Mhm.
championship runs were. So that's
I agree 100%,
that's my worry for Cody.
and that's why I'm in no rush for Roman to drop to him
Yeah.
for that
But the
reason.
thing is, it's like, can the fans be as hot as him for another year? That's the next thing. But that's a whole
Now,
different conversation of Hulk
would
Hogan.
you would you,
Mhm.
Rich,
Yeah.
how would if they end up doing a situation at WrestleMania
Yeah.
where Cody wins,
Yes.
and then that same night Damian Priest cash in and then beats Cody in that same night.
Hmm.
So Cody gets the win over Roman, only to minutes later lose to Priest.
Hmm.
Are, how are you feeling then?
I think it'd be stupid because you're overshadowing Roman's loss.
Okay. So again, so we first have to deal with this Money in the Bank issue too.
Hmm. Well, the
You
thing
know, which
is, as we've established last year, apparently you can cash in the Money in the Bank for any singles championship.
okay,
And there has been a tease of Damian Priest and Gunther, if you remember, a couple months back.
they have been.
You
Hmm.
know, so I'm not saying that's the direction it will go, but I think, honestly, I
I think
think
the
that
door's wide open.
it's one of
I
those
think the
things
door's
where
wide open.
I think uh, with the Money in the Bank in recent years, it's a dead weight for anyone carrying it for a long period of time,
Hmm.
because then it's like, oh, when's he going to cash in? When's he going to cash in? And then as tradition with most Money in the Bank holders, they keep losing because it doesn't matter. They have the Money in the Bank. So, oh, you could lose all you want, which it's like you could kind of see that point, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, try to keep them strong here. But I think Damian Priest will cash in, and his cash in will be unsuccessful, whether it's on Roman, Cody, Seth. But because the story with Damian Priest is about the Judgment Day and less about him being champion.
At the moment,
Hmm.
again,
Yeah,
he has a year. Remember, they still no one says he has to do anything with that until what, June, July? I think July was Money in the Bank.
July. Yeah,
So theoretically, you got plenty of time still left to.
yeah.
You know, let the cards fall. Right. Let's see how this works.
Hmm.
No, it's no rush. No rush.
Yeah,
This doesn't be. This could be. This could be cashed in at next year's Money in the Bank pay-per-view.
yeah.
It
Uh,
could.
all right, Seth.
You
I'm
know.
gonna I'm gonna give you a hard ball of a question right here.
All right.
All right, which reign do you enjoy more watching, the Hulk Hogan reign or the Roman reign? No pun intended.
Yeah. The young kid in me loved the Hulk Hogan reign.
Hmm.
Um, I loved going to the Garden. I loved going to Nassau Coliseum and seeing Hulk Hogan.
Right.
You know, um, I love right now watching the big fight feel when Roman Reigns comes on onto the card.
Hmm.
Um, I love the storyline and everything that goes along with the bloodline. I loved everything that came along with Hulk Hogan. Different time periods. Listen, I'm not gonna. You can't say that you know Hulk Hogan was you know anything but good for this company, because we're not even having this conversation today if it wasn't for the Hulk Hogan Hulkamania years.
Hmm.
So if I have to go with it, I'm going Hulk Hogan.
Okay, then that's good.
What you gonna do, Richie? What you gonna
The
do?
nostalgia is strong with you, sir, and I can't say I blame you with that, because we've always had those guys. It's like for me, it was like that John Cena year-long championship run that I'm very
Hmm.
fond of. You're always gonna remember that face of the company title reign, and it's just interesting now that we have like the Thanos edition of that in WWE when it's been traditionally a good guy company, and I think it freshened things up a lot for storytelling overall in general. But Seth, I'm gonna add a little new segment in here. I will have
Okay.
you ask me any question concerning this topic, any question at all. I'm switching hosting abilities to you, and I will have to answer any question. I will not cheap out. I won't say yes. I won't say, oh, maybe this, maybe that. I am going to answer it to my
Okay.
ability.
So Richie, for this question, I guess Hulk Hogan in his prime
Hmm.
versus the Tribal Chief. How you booking it and who's winning?
All right, Hulk Hogan in his prime, Tribal Chief Roman Reigns in his prime, I assume.
Yes.
So, what's going to happen? And who's champion, or is it just a
It's both
unification?
champ-
Both champions.
It's World Wrestling Federation champion Hulk Hogan
Hmm.
versus the WWE undisputed Universal Champion Roman Reigns.
Okay, so here's how it's gonna happen. And I'm not gonna do the because I know Hogan has lost championship matches by count and DQ. It's gonna be straight up
Right.
clean finish. This is how it's gonna go down. Hogan Roman. It's gonna be a similar vibe to The Rock and Hogan at WrestleMania 18. You're gonna have the bloodline come down. Gonna have the full bloodline. You're gonna have Usos, Sammy, Solo. Hogan's gonna hit all his traditional stuff, the U and the shaking of the finger, and he's gonna hit the boot on Roman. Everyone comes down. Hogan takes all of them out. Roman goes for the spear. Oh, Hogan hits him with the boot. Hogan then goes for the leg drop. Roman gets up. Hogan misses. And then Roman goes for the spear. Then Hogan punches Roman in the face. You get the U again. Got to go for the boot again. Roman ducks the boot, comes from behind, gets the spear, gets the 1, 2, 3. Roman Reigns is tribal chief forever.
I like it. Sign me up.
Well,
take my money, Richie.
we're gonna call Hogan brother.
Yeah. What you gonna do?
Who knows if he wants that to happen? I heard back in the day he was quite the politician, but that's neither here nor there. We weren't backstage. We don't know.
No,
we only know everybody else's account from working with Hogan.
You only hear from the people. You only hear from the people that were not on his good side. I mean, Hogan did plenty of good things for plenty.
You're telling me that Shawn Michaels was on Hogan's bad side after the Larry King skit?
Hey, listen, he had to know. He had to know.
All right, Seth. Thank you for joining me as always. You are always welcome here. You're always a great co-host to have during Wrestling Retold and Relive with Richie Mars, which you could see on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and you can follow us on TikTok, the Twitter, or X, and Instagram. My name is Richie Mars, and I will see you next time. Same place, same time. TTFN, ta-ta for now.